Welcome to the Maximize Business Value podcast, brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners like you to maximize your business value and achieve the exit of your dreams, whatever that means to you. With insights gained from over 100 business transactions, we share real-world strategies, lessons, and expert advice to help you build long-term, sustainable value in your business. Each episode is hosted by one of our Mastery certified partners. They're seasoned experts who've helped countless business owners navigate the complexities of growth, scaling, and building value. They bring first-hand experience, actionable insights, and a passion for helping you build a business that thrives. So let's dive in.
So hi, this is Dave Casey, and welcome to the Maximize Business Value podcast. This is for business leaders who are passionate about building long-term sustainable value in their business. And today I'm excited to reintroduce to the podcast Jeremy Furtick, founding partner of North Star M&A. And Jeremy, welcome back.
I appreciate it, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah. So you've been on the podcast in the past, and I know we've talked about various topics, but can you refresh our listeners a little bit about your background and a little bit about North Star?
Yeah, so North Star Mergers and Acquisitions is a firm based out of Dallas. We are really specialized in, I guess you would call it, lower middle market transactions. We represent primarily the owners of these privately held companies that are looking to divest or exit in some way, shape, or form. So that's the majority of what we do. We'll also work with buyers from time to time that have a specialized search criteria that need some assistance in going out and finding the right opportunities to acquire. But really, I mean, that's what North Star is essentially helping sellers realize the value of the businesses that they've built, take them to market, and find the right partner to take over those companies, whatever the term right means for them and for their situation.
I can very imagine. So the whole process of that is pretty fascinating to me. And I think, as you know, I had a business for 20 plus years in the IT services world. And when it was time to exit, I was pretty green. I mean, even though I've been in business a long time, I was pretty uninformed about what it was actually going to take to exit the company. I had a couple of insights into it. I belonged to a group called Vistage, which is a CEO peer group. And a couple of my Vistage buddies had bought and sold businesses and been through the process. So they helped me out a little bit. In fact, encouraged me through the process. And I worked with an M&A attorney, I think you know, David Hammer. And David, even though my transaction was a little on the small side for David, he was kind enough to take me on and steer me through that. So the process, I think, for either selling a company or even recapitalizing, I think is, for me, it's pretty daunting. What are the steps kind of that the business owner goes through or that you take them through in this process?
By the time they reach us, they've usually done a lot of thinking, a lot of contemplating, a lot of soul searching, and that could go on for years. So sometimes it's a month before they just I had a client one time who was sitting on the dock at the lake with his wife and said, I'm thinking about selling this business. She went in to make him another drink, and she filled out 3 online forms on 3 websites that she found on Google before she came back out. And that's how he got going.
Wow.
And we had him listed,
I think she was ready for him to sell the business too.
Exactly. Right. But and then some other people, they're a lot more calculated, a lot more planning that goes involved. So that's really the first step, is for that business owner to decide, I want to explore this. I want to see what this means, whether or not I'm ready to do it now, or I'm ready to do it maybe in 10 years.
Yeah.
But whenever a business owner takes that mental leap of, I need to start thinking about this, that's step one. And then as far as when we get involved, it really starts with understanding not only the business, but also the individual owner or owners in some cases. What are their motivations? What are they trying to accomplish? Because there's black and white to this process of, here is what your business is likely worth. But there's also a lot of intangibles involved in really understanding what's the seller trying to accomplish, what are their motivations, what are their next steps, and really understanding those things to be able to steer them in the right direction and be a good advisor, really at the end of the day. Um, so of course, evaluating the business, putting an analysis together that not only determines what the business is worth, but also a little bit of a feasibility study, if you will, about what's it going to take to sell this? How likely is it to
Yeah.
sell for this price? Who are the buyers going to be? What's the timing look like? We try to give, business owners an understanding of here are all the things you can expect and to really give some thought to before they make a decision. And assuming we're all on the same page, then that's when we move forward and
Hmm.
begin the packaging process. And that's something that certainly should be done confidentially. Some people, prefer a little more confidentiality than others. But packaging the business, putting together the collateral that's going to be presented to the market in such a way that educates the buyers about
Hmm.
what this business is. I mean, ultimately, the way we look at it is let's make it easy for a buyer to buy a business. And we do that by representing the seller in such a way that um, leaves them out of as much of the process as possible so they can concentrate on running and operating their business while we go out there and get in the weeds and cull through these hundreds of buyers literally that we talk to on every deal and whittle those down to people that really fit the criteria of what the seller's looking for that ready, willing, and able, the old saying. They've got the
Yeah.
cash, they've got the ability or the financing, they've got the right experience, they've got the motivation, and then ultimately, through that marketing process, finding the right partner from an acquisition standpoint, negotiating those terms. That's a lot of times there's attorneys involved at that point, but a lot of our clients don't get their attorneys involved at that stage. They really rely on us to negotiate those letters of intent, and then we move into the due diligence phase, which is one place I think we really shine is being able to navigate that process. It's
Yeah.
incredibly painstaking.
Yeah. It's
It
been
can
over a
be,
dozen years for me, and I still remember.
yeah,
So
yeah.
painstaking.
So
I wouldn't say painstaking. I just maybe just pain. So,
it is. I mean, I tell my clients, just think of this as me blindfolding you and leading you through a minefield.
yeah.
I'm gonna try to avoid the big things that blow up, but
Yep.
sometimes they're inevitable, and at least I'm gonna tell you before it goes off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're expecting it, but so there's some steps that are common throughout this process every time, no matter who does it in what
Yep.
city in the state in the country. But every firm like ours does it a little bit differently and has their own kind of spin on it.
Yeah. When you talked earlier about, it's a since you're kind of in the middle of the transaction, there's communication with the buyer or or potential buyers, let's put it that way, and also with the seller or potential sellers. I mean, it may be a family business or it may be more than one partner in the business and so on. And that to me that's kind of the magic because you've got this communication, something that maybe the seller asks you to ask the buyer, and you might say, well, this is not the right time to ask that question,
Mhm.
or we probably shouldn't ask that question until we're much further down the road, or we may never should ask that question, uh,
Mhm.
or look at those things. I think the as I want to remember mine as well, and I did mine a little differently. I did it the wrong way, exactly the wrong way from y'all standpoint, in that I already understood who was going to buy my business. We'd already talked about it. We'd actually talked about it for 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
So it was kind of an on again, off again. If the time is right, we would do this. And so I never really put the business on the market per se, which in retrospect I really should have. There were a lot of reasons I didn't, but they were pretty, as it turned out, they probably weren't valid. So I probably would have had a better result had I known now what I didn't know then. But the thing that I guess the question I had is there are some things that are just have to be done every time. Due diligence has to be done every time. There's the packaging, and something that you said kind of triggered it is that you make it easier for buyers to actually discern, do I want to pursue this or not? And it sounds like that there's some value there of just making it very quick for them to make that decision. Do I continue in the process or not?
Mhm.
And I guess that won't be the last time you may talk to that particular buyer. So that might be how we like dealing with North Star for a reason like that, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there is on average last year, we had 137 buyers per deal
Wow.
under NDA. That's a lot. That's a lot of people that we reached that were interested enough to sign the non-disclosure to get the confidential information memorandum and start the process. And again, getting back to that, if we look at everything from the context of let's make this easy for buyers because we're well aware that we represent the seller in 99% of the cases. But we're also very aware that in order for our seller to be successful, we've got to have a ready, willing, and able buyer. And when it comes to those buyers, we're aware they're not just looking at one deal. They're
Yeah.
looking at several opportunities, and they're working with several people like us, and directly with some sellers, like in your case, or dozens, if not more, at the same time. So how do you make yourself stand out? This just gets back to old, down and dirty marketing. How do you make your
Yeah.
product or your
Yeah.
service stand out? And that's really what we're focused on when we go to market is let's get their attention and then let's let them get to know quickly. N-O, not K-N-O-W. Get them to a know quickly, and they'll
Mhm.
appreciate that because
Yeah.
they're looking at a dozen deals and they don't need to spend 3 weeks trying to decide if, can I at least get a P&L from last year so I can decide if I want to move forward with this business and ask more questions.
Yeah.
They get enough information on the front end where they can make a decision very quickly. And so to your point, yeah, they appreciate that. And then when we roll out the next deal, they're excited to see our email come into their inbox
Yeah.
because they know, okay, it may not be the right fit, but I know I'm going to be able to get really good information in a timely manner and make good, educated, quick decisions about moving forward.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's a great service to both the seller and the buyer, really. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you're
Hmm.
really delivering a lot on both sides of the equation. And I mean, you've been doing this just a couple of years, I know. I mean, just a year or two with North Star, but for many years before that as well. So
Right.
can you recall the most difficult hurdle that you remember having to clear, taking companies through this process?
A specific example or just in general?
Well, if you've got an example, that'd be cool. But if there's one that seems to pop up all the time, then maybe that's one too. But
I can tell you the most difficult specific example is one time when I found out a client that I was representing actually had a felony on their record
oh,
that to me really was inconsequential. Who cares?
yeah,
Has nothing to do with his business. It was decades in the past, and but during the lender's due diligence process, they found this and brought it to the buyer's attention. The buyer, of course, had a negative reaction to it,
sure,
and it was something we were actually able to overcome and come back to the table and discuss, and really in the context of okay, let's try to be sensitive to this, but at the end of the day, does it really matter?
yeah,
But that was a big one because that was one that never has happened before or since,
wow.
completely out of left field. But yeah, that was an interesting
I don't know if that's
experience.
a
But
question that comes up in due diligence. Have you ever had a felony conviction?
no, I mean, they ask when you apply for a loan, they ask that of the borrower,
Sure, yeah,
because that from an SBA standpoint, for example, that eliminates you from consideration. That's
yeah.
a prerequisite is you do not have a felony on your record. But
Wow.
I've never really heard it, from a seller standpoint. But in
Yeah,
any event, but I would say, the the things that happen time and time again, deal in and deal out, is sellers start to get nervous. These business owners start to get nervous, and they really start to question: Are they doing the right thing? Are they getting the best deal? Is this the best acquisition partner? So there's uncertainty, and call it seller's remorse if you want to use
yeah.
a
Even
a
pre-sale
term.
seller's remorse.
Oh
So,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Where they're really doubting, and they're facing these realities of we talk a lot through the process about day one, and it's day one post close.
yeah,
What does day one look like for these business owners? And sometimes it gets a little scary because hey, if they started this company and they've been running it for 50 years in
Yeah.
some cases, it's going to be very different all of a sudden,
Yeah.
day one, compared to the last, tens of thousands of days that they've experienced. So I'd say that we kind of joke around the office every now and then that at a certain point we can become less business advisor and more therapist.
I was going to say
Um,
this is a psychological
yeah.
discussion as much as it is tactical to, okay, here's the information you need to provide, and I need these numbers from your CPA or whatever. This becomes a, wow, what's your world? Are you prepared, I guess, for that? As a
Hmm.
business. And it's funny, I've
Which
got
is,
a friend that's writing a book right now. He sold his business about 2.5 years ago, and he
mhm,
had some serious adjustment following that. I mean, he built the business. He had brought on partners over the years, but he was the business, and he didn't think it was going to affect him like it did.
right.
And it certainly, I mean, it wasn't a financial. He was financially set for life. It was really a psychological thing. Is how do I matter?
Hmm.
Who cares about me anymore? And so I mean, it was tough. So to the point where he's actually writing a book with his M&A advisor that steered him through the process. They're writing the book together, and they're
Oh, well.
interviewing post-exit founders, people that have
Hmm.
founded and sold a business and have gone through that. So it was pretty intriguing. So
Yeah, and that's one of the things I do like about the experiences that I've had here recently is because and our clients are aware of it. We're talking to so many buyers. I mean, I said it was 137 was the average. I just recently got a business under contract with a buyer, an LOI. We had 329 buyers on that business.
wow.
So as difficult as it was for him to decide what he wanted to do, at least he's confident knowing I've got the best deal I could possibly want with the
Yeah,
best partner I could possibly want because we talk to so many people. And I think there is some comfort in that, knowing that, when you talk about the seller's remorse aspect of it, but
yeah,
at least he's not questioning, should I have waited a little longer, done things a little differently?
yeah.
Because, when you talk to that many people, you just know.
Yeah, if there's that much interest, then he either has a super desirable business or our business climate's a lot better than the media is letting on. So one of
Yeah,
those
it's
two.
probably a little of both.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and in that vein, I guess, I know every deal is different, but can you remember the most rewarding experience you had, steering a seller through the whole process and then having it come to fruition?
Wow, the most rewarding, I would really have to say that there was one client in particular that, you know, had a really nice, a manufacturing based business, custom manufacturing and installation tied to the construction industry. And he was doubtful of the whole process in the beginning
Mm,
because he had tried to do it on his own and thought, "Hey, no big deal. This won't be difficult. I've run a successful business for 35 years. I've sold plenty of things. I know more about my business than I know about anything, so this won't be hard." And it
yeah,
was a rude awakening for him, and so he's pretty discouraged by the time I talked to him.
yeah,
And so there was part of it was really kind of reinvigorating that confidence that, and you got a great business. This is going to be very desirable on the market, and then getting it to market and um, finding the right partner, going through that process, getting all those things done through the due diligence, aspect of it, the buyer getting the loan approved, all that at every step of the way, you had to really build him up. And when it was all said and done, his wife actually told me that, this is something that he didn't believe was going to happen until the week of. And even then, he wasn't positive.
yeah.
And, to this day, I still get referrals from him. And this was probably 15 years ago now.
Wow.
Um, that and the things that people tell me that he says, so yes, it was a rewarding deal, but what's been very rewarding since then is I get this feedback from his referral sources that say, well, Billy told me, that all these things you did for him, and things that he would have never told me himself.
Right.
But it really made me realize what a massive impact we had on his life. That it is something that's just like any job, anything anybody does, it's a grind, and this
Yeah.
is too. And so there's some times where you lose sight of what's the bigger picture of this. What are we trying to accomplish? Of course, we're all trying to make a living. These sellers are all trying to exercise an exit plan and a retirement plan and the nest egg and all these other motivations. But we're all just people, and we've got emotional things
Sure.
that we want to accomplish. And so hearing those things over and over and over again from people, the things that he says about me and the process that he went through has been something that really sticks with me. It's kind of a nice little slap in the face every now and then to remember. Okay, yeah, we do make a difference in a lot of these people's lives.
Yeah. 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 I know in my personal case, it's kind of like, yeah, if it hadn't worked out right, or if my business hadn't worked out right, yeah, I could go back and go to work for somebody else and probably earn a decent income, but psychologically, it would have been a huge hit. So, but yeah, to hear that directly or indirectly from someone you helped has got to be really gratifying.
Hmm.
So it's interesting. You and I are both kind of work for Mastery Group, if you will. There's three companies under one umbrella, and so there is North Star M&A, which is the actual M&A process of taking a company to market and selling it. I work with Mastery Partners, which we help business owners maximize the value of their business, maybe with that exit some point in the future. Uh,
Hmm.
and then we also have the Business Transition Summit, which is an education event. How do you describe like the synergy between the three companies and the way we work together?
To use an old cliche that actually I found out the other day, my wife had never heard, and I had to explain it to her, and then we had to Google it. Uh, it's soup to nuts. It's
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
it's alpha to omega. It's A to Z, whatever you want to call it. It's really what the Mastery Group offers business owners, from my perspective, is it doesn't really matter what stage you're at in your business life cycle. Even if you're in the very infancy of even thinking about an idea for a business,
hmm,
BTS can help you, the Transition Summit.
yep,
There's resources there to start educating you and also put you way ahead of the game because you're thinking about, the old begin with the end in mind.
sure,
Um,
yeah. The
that
way
that's
you form your
that's
company, just the type of
mhm.
structure you use, is so important. And I remember when we formed our company, our attorney goes, "Well, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a C corp or an S corp or?" When we said, "Well, what do you think we should be?" So it was like we had no clue. So yeah,
Right. And so I that's what I love about the Mastery Group and just everything that it represents is, um, it started with Mastery Partners and that belief that we need to help business owners um, realize the value of their companies and things that they can do now, whether or not an exit's on the horizon or not.
yeah,
These things will make their business better, and then realize, well, we need to even get to them a little earlier and offer them education and resources. They don't have to work with Mastery, but
yeah,
they need to be, let's provide them a service. And then realizing that, okay, now we have all these people that we've helped that now are ready to exit, and that's
right,
where North Star comes in. So
yeah,
it's very unique. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been in the M&A market in Dallas Fort Worth, and I've never seen anything like this, with one
yeah,
group that really is there to support the business owner at literally every single stage of the process of the
yeah.
business life cycle.
And it's interesting, when we started the Business Transition Summit, I kind of thought, well, that's a nice thing, it's a good way to meet people and so on. But what I didn't realize is the incredible value and appeal to that for the business owner, that he may have watched friends of his sell their business and everything, and watched what they went through. And it's a process. It's a lot of distraction.
Mhm.
And if you just want to learn about everything, the Transition Summit's like a super safe place to do it. I mean, you get great presentations, breakout sessions. No one is pressuring you to, sign here, sign up with us. we'll help you do this, we'll help you do that. And that includes not just our team, but all of the different professionals that present at that summit. No one is buttonholing somebody and say, hey, you need to sign up with us. They just kind of present what their piece of the puzzle is, and if someone has an interest, they're free to engage. But it's to me, it's a very safe space really for a business
Hmm.
owner to go and learn. And then hopefully we add value at Mastery because like you said, um, some of the things we do at Mastery, my Vistage group helped me with, but it wasn't structured the way we are at Mastery, where we dive deep. I mean, 400 different data points that we're gathering on the company, and then actually, figuring out where there's gaps or where they need help, and
Right.
not just pointing out that you need help, but actually providing help. So
Hmm.
I do like the way that thing ties together. So, hey, since you've had so much experience with different companies and different results, I guess that you've seen, the last question we ask every guest on this podcast, this podcast is really aimed at maximizing business value. So, what's the one most important thing that you would, recommend a business owner do to build value within their business?
Well, that's a great question, because there are probably four or five really important ones that we hone in on
Mhm.
in that very first conversation with a business owner to see where they stand in these value drivers that we call them. Um, I'd really say the most important thing, uh, it it kind of boils down to clean books. I really think
Ah,
of all the things, if you didn't do, the other ones being customer concentration, owner dependency,
yep, yep,
systems and processes, those types of things that are all really critical from a transference standpoint. Um, but you can even get away with those things not being as critical, but it's really hard to get around bad books and records.
yeah,
So, make the investment in a quality, whether it's, depending on the size of your organization, of course, whether it's an internal bookkeeper, an external CPA or firm that even does it, whether your business requires an annual audit or reviewed financials quarterly, whatever it is that makes sense for your particular business, just make sure that your books are easy to read.
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, um, you can have two companies that are relatively the same in so many aspects, but one of them has very accurate books and records, and one of them has a little bit of a mess on their hands. It's harder for them to prove what they're doing from a financial standpoint. The business with the clean books is going to sell easier and for more,
sure.
99 times out of 100.
Yep. Yeah, and it's interesting because I know when with my company, our books were pretty clean, I would say. But there are things that we didn't need to do to run the business that we should have been doing on the books.
Mhm.
Just the way our general ledger was set up. There's just, you know, various and things, a lot of little things that add up to bigger things when you actually go through the transaction, and things that have to be, information that has to be sought out and researched, and it just adds time and it adds cost, I think, to the whole process. And
Right.
to me, that would be that's super advice. And I've asked that question of probably four or five people so far. You're the first one to say clean books, which is great.
I'll
That's
tell you, so much of value is, and I tell my clients this all the time. Buyer confidence is what
yeah,
drives value.
yeah,
I mean, it really boils down to how confident is the buyer, and if they're super confident, then you're more likely to get your asking price.
yeah,
If they aren't, then you're not. And so books are to me are that really that thing. It all boils down to that if you
yeah,
have really solid books, it's like the foundation. The
yeah.
rest of the structure could be great, but it's a little wobbly at the bottom.
Well, and the other thing and David Hammer brought this across to me in my transaction. I remember the buyer was asking that, they list a list of questions, and I need this following information. And a couple of times he was like, yeah, they're asking that. They're going to need that information sooner or later throughout this process. They're just giving you the whole list up front there. there were a couple times when they asked a question that I swear was the same question. And
Hmm.
he says, "Oh, we need to respond to that like pronto. If you don't have this information at your fingertips, let's get a hold of the CPA. Let's get a hold of your corporate attorney. Let's get this figured out quick. I want to get this answer to them this afternoon."
Hmm.
And I'm looking at it as the business owner. I couldn't see the difference, and whereas having been through those transactions, he said, "Yeah, this is really important. You need to get them this information. This may make a decision on whether they move forward or not."
Yeah. Hmm.
Or evaluation. They're ticking the boxes of, well, if they don't have this information ready at hand, then they may not have that, or they kind of jump to their own suppositions, I think.
Hmm.
Uh,
Right.
yeah. Well, man, what fantastic advice. Really, really enjoyed the conversation. So thanks for sharing your insights and definitely your experiences with this.
No, that was great. I appreciate it, Dave. I enjoyed. I could talk about this stuff for days.
Yeah, I was going to say you've done it once or twice, which is actually what our listeners need to hear. So
Hmm.
super. So with that, this is the Maximize Business Value podcast, where we give practical advice to business owners that are looking to build long-term sustainable value in their business. Be sure to tune in each week. We cover a different topic each time, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss a single episode. With that, I'm Dave Casey. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Maximize Business Value podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas on how you can continue driving value in your business. But remember, it's not just about listening. It's about taking massive action. Visit our website, masterypartners.com, for more resources. Grab a copy of any of the books in the Maximize Business Value series on Amazon or via the links below. And don't hesitate to reach out if you want to know how to apply these concepts to your business. So until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to relentlessly execute while you maximize business value.